Hello, my name is Nicholas Clary from Cobridge Consulting. I'm going to present the standards recognition and the type testing in Korea, a very important topic. First, for this presentation, we'll cover the local standards search, how to search for standards locally, how to find if there's local deviation, the standards recognition, and then break it down by different types of standard for the CB scheme for active products, the good laboratory practice for non-active, and the quality system and the KGMP, Korean Good Manufacturing Practice. And then we'll finish with the testing in Korea. Now, how to search for local standards? For that, there's a very easy way to do. It's to go to the Korean Standard Service Network web store, and for that there's a link provided here that gives this information. There's been a video prepared for this. I'm going to play that right now just to explain. So there's a special attention to be paid whether the standards are identical, modified, or not equivalent. This is very important. In most cases this is identical, but there are very few cases where it's really important to confirm it. Now about local deviations. I bring one example here of the electromagnetic compatibility, the EMC, where there are some local deviations due to the power requirement in Korea. So those deviations will be listed. We will see later on the IEC-EE, and those will be listed, and which test has to be then updated. The test condition has to be updated in order to reflect the Korean power requirements. So, talking about the local deviations, power requirements in Korea: 220 volt in single phase and 60 Hertz, and 380 volt in three phase. Regarding the standard recognition, talking about standards recognition, we have to divide different types of standards. Standards related to products and quality system. A quality system is for the Korean good manufacturing practice. For the product, this is whether a product is active or non-active. For the CB scheme, so this is for active products. Active products must follow CB scheme, and their submission is usually including a CB certificate and a CB report. We have to make sure that the local deviations are implemented before testing and verify during testing that those are applied. The report should reflect the application of the deviations. Now, is the test lab an IEC member? That's a very, very important question. It has to be confirmed on the IEC-EE website in the IEC members section. We find it here with this screenshot with the IEC CB scheme. Looking at the members we have below the different countries, and then clicking, for instance, on Korea, which is not something that usually you would do because you would contact your local lab, but just to illustrate, we have here the different members in Korea, the CB scheme. Now, about the CB scheme, we have, depending on the class of the product, whether it's class 1 or 2, 3 or 4, different levels of recognition, and this is given by experience. Our experience and the usual feedback from the market. If it's a class 1 or 2, a class 1 is easy because that's just a notification, so basically there is no submission of the technical documents. But for class 2, it goes through a third party, and the third party, usually that's a Korean lab, and they, in most cases, they are also member of the IEC, and they also apply the same level of deviation. So they also recognize pretty much all the CB reports, and that's confirmed with the IEC staff and management. Now, on the other hand, when looking at the class 3 and class 4, and the review is done by the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, MFDS. And at this point, there could be some hurdles or difficulties in the recognition of the CB report. For instance, what we saw before, the application of local deviations, that would not be always sufficient for the MFDS. And MFDS, you have to understand that they are not specialized in testing, let's say. So there could be some requests where they would ask the local condition to be applied for all tests. So that's really important to consider. Now, looking at there, some guidance are published by the MFDS in order to facilitate the registration, and we've highlighted some of those. So when they first illustrate what to do, how to search for the lab is illustrated here. So they search for a specific lab and they confirm the scope of this lab here. So we have here the scope, and then on the other section they've also highlighted the important sections of the report that should be considered. For instance, we have the product, we have also the ratings, and we have the reference of the report and the standards applied and their edition, so the year or the edition number. After that, so here is a kind of repetition of what we said before on the left, and on the right side is the content of the report. Again, here we find the ratings, we find so that includes the supply voltage and the range of voltage, and also the frequency, and we have also the reference of the report at the bottom that should be always specified. Components part, so there should be also documentation about the components. So we find here important components such as the board, the fuse, and also the power supply. About good laboratory practice, so in this case we are not on the active, it's non-active, and however it could be also a combined product where the GLP also has to be considered, but anyway in most cases this is for non-active products. So we said already this GLP, we will use this acronym. For instance, biocompatibility is one of the main topics when we talk about the GLP. It usually follows the FDA in US, the Food and Drug Administration, 21 CFR in the part 58. In the publication on the website of the FDA contains the listing of the approved lab, whether it's in US or outside of US, which have recognized or are approved. And then there are also highlights in the report just to pay attention of what should be mentioned. Here we have an example of the famous NAMSA, where the lab, the identification of the lab should be clear. Also there should be the sponsor, then the title of the study, the test article should be mentioned, and then some footer reference which would include or page number, etc. The approval section should contain an approval of the report, and then the statement, a clear statement about the compliance. Then some other considerations. So for instance, which standard is applied, and also the dates. Okay, so the dates of receiving the samples, the dates of starting the test, and after the conclusion. Also the control, so the method for control should be clear in the report. And then the procedure should be also well documented. The samples used in the vehicle should be also clear, and on the previous section, the method and any possible deviation, result and conclusion should appear on the report. After that, any component of the device should be documented. In the end, there would be an approval of the QA representative of the lab performing the test. That was it. And then about the quality system, we said quality system here, it's clear that the ISO 13485 is recognized without any deviation through the Medical Act. Okay, so in fact the whole standard is copied in the Medical Act, so there should be no interrogation or no doubt about if a company is compliant to the ISO 13485, then there should be no worries for the KGMP inspection. The focus should be on the preparation of the device master record, and that should be the only point that should be considered. Now, testing in Korea. Testing in Korea is sometimes the best option. We've already discussed before about some cases where this testing would be a good option, but let's recap on those. If Korea is a major market, so if for instance the products you want to register will mainly go to Korea or very few markets, and or you have no budget for the CB report, and or the product to be registered is class 3 or class 4, then you should really consider doing the testing in Korea. The reason is, as we said before, is that there is a poor recognition of the CB reports. So this is, and CB reports are extremely expensive. So this is also for the budget of registration. This has a heavy weight. So this is usually a decision to take, whether testing should be done once for all or in different countries. If the testing is done in Korea, there are about 14 labs in Korea. The most famous ones are the KTR, KTC, KCL, KTRI. I will not detail the meaning of those acronyms. Obviously it starts with Korea testing or Korea certification. And we also have some university-based labs, but they are more specialized, for instance, in the dental or other fields. But the first four are more like general testing labs, having a wide scope. But however, care should be taken when choosing the lab for testing, because they have different specialties, different connections also with the MFDS. So some of them are much better at capturing and fulfilling the requirements of MFDS. So if we want to avoid any possible difficulties for the registration, when passing the file from the third party to the MFDS, you should really consider and also compare those different labs. we're not going to recommend any of the labs we have listed here, but we know where are the strengths and where are the weak points. What's the price range? It's much cheaper to test in Korea than to, let's say, of course, first comparing to a CB report, it's much cheaper, of course, but anyway, even without having a CB report, this is also rather cheap. So price range for EMC be around 700 US dollars or up to 1,000, and for electrical safety 3,000, just to give an idea. Biocompatibility could be more expensive, about 10,000, but also including a whole range of tests. Of course, it depends on the complexity of the product. For a very wide range of testing for biocompatibility for implants or the like, then yeah, we would reach this price range. If we consider an electrical device, for instance, where we would have to test the EMC, electrical safety, and also performance, so like a particular standard, that would be the price range would be around let's say 5,000 in euro, would be 5,000, and we would be around 7,000 in dollars. Of course, has to be adjusted, but just to give an idea. Okay, it was a pleasure to give this overview on standard recognition and type testing in Korea. Again, my name is Nicholas Clary, signing off. Coverage Consulting. You can find information and links to our websites, email and phone number here. Thank you again very much.